Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be doing part 2 of the Harry Styles sweater. So for this part you are going to need a darning needle and some leftover yarn because we're going to be sewing all the squares together. So I started with the back panel and basically I just followed the pattern that was provided on the PDF. When it comes to sewing it together, I would use a piece of yarn that is the same color as one of the squares you're sewing, and basically you just want to go through the tops and the bottom of both the squares and sew it together and make sure everything's done really tightly and tie a knot at the beginning and the end. So for the back panel, you want to shape the back shoulders. So first we're going to do the back right shoulder, and you're going to want to take out the stitches in row 1 until you have a length of about 10 to 12 centimeters. Once we get to the desired length, we are going to cast off 8 stitches, knit to the end, and cast off the remaining 8 stitches. I know that the pattern says 9 stitches, but if you remember from part 1, I did 16 stitches for the square's width, so that's why it's less. And you can just save your extra yarn to sew together later pieces. Now that row 6 is sewn together, we can shape the back left shoulder, and again we're going to rip out the stitches at the green square until we reach a length of about 10 to 12 centimeters. Once we get to the desired length, we're going to cast off 8 stitches and then work in the pattern and then cast off the remaining 8 stitches. Now that all the individual rows are complete, we can sew them all together and have a completed back panel. Now we're going to do the left front panel. Again, we just need to sew all the individual rows first. Now we need to shape the left front shoulder, which is going to be basically the same thing as what we did for row 6 of the back left shoulder. Also, just bear in mind that the shoulder shaping is completely optional and it's not very necessary in the end. Now it's time to shape the left front neck. This is necessary and you definitely want to do it so you can have a nice collar. So you're going to rip out the stitches of the orange square in row 1 until you reach a length of about 5 centimeters. Once you have your desired length, on the wrong side you are going to cast off 2 stitches, knit to the end, and then the next row knit to the last 2 stitches, knit 2 together, and you continue this process until you have reached only 8 stitches remaining. And then you are just going to continue to do the garter stitch until you reach a length of 12 centimeters. In the end, you want the orange piece to look like a backwards L. Now that the shaping is complete, you just want to sew the 3 rows together. Now it's time to sew the right front panel together. Now it's time to shape the right front shoulder. This is going to look very similar to the back right shoulder from the back panel row 1. You're going to rip out the stitches of row 1's orange square until you have a length of about 10 to 12 centimeters. Once you reach your desired length, you are going to, on the wrong side, cast off 8 stitches, knit to the end, and then knit the next row and cast off the remaining 8 stitches. Now we need to shape the right front neck, which again is a necessary step that you should do. Now you're going to want to rip out the stitches of the yellow square in row 3 until you reach a length of 5 centimeters. Once you reach your desired length, on the right side you're going to cast off 2 stitches and knit to the end. Then you're going to continue the pattern to the last 2 stitches and knit 2 together. Repeat this process until you only have 8 stitches remaining, and then you're going to continue the pattern till you reach a length of 12 centimeters. The final shape of this yellow square should look somewhat like an L. Now that everything is shaped, you can sew all of the rows together. Now we're to our final part. We're going to do the sleeves. These are the most straightforward sections to do. You just have to sew each row individually and then sew all the rows together and repeat the process so you have 2 full sleeves. Now we have all the major pieces completed. You should have a total of 5 pieces, including a back panel, 2 front panels, and 2 sleeves. One thing I would recommend before you start sewing the pieces together is to weave in all the little threads for a neater look. Bear in mind that this step can be done whenever you'd like, but I think it's just easier if you do it first. The first thing I did was I sewed the sleeves closed. Just a reminder, make sure you are sewing on the inside of the sweater and not the outside, because it'll just make the outside look a lot neater. Next, I did the front panels to the back panel, and just one thing, make sure you remember only to do the bottom 2 squares on each side, because you need the top 2 squares to do the sleeves. Once the side is attached, you can sew the top parts. You can sew all 3 of these across. and then just repeat the same process for the other front panel. Now it's time to attach the sleeves. You should have 4 open panels on the front and back panels that you can sew the sleeves to. Now our sweater is almost complete, and we just have to do the ribbing and the collar and the button band, which will be in part 3.